Americans have trillions of dollars invested in business, and yet almost all of it is invested in about 3,000 companies that are listed in the stock market. And the massive number of millions and millions of businesses in our country that are not listed on the stock market really struggle with access to capital. So there's really no lack of money. It's just that it's allocated to such a small number of businesses in our country. So I want to talk more about what we can do about that and also share with you how you can invest right now in something in your own community or in a community that you care about. If you look at the link below, there's a link to a website called Small Change, and it actually has investment opportunities in real estate, and you might find one in your own community. I'm running one that is based in Baltimore. So if you're Baltimore based or you care about Baltimore, check out my offering, but there are other offerings there as well. So the first thing I want to say is that there's a certain number of there's a certain group of investors out there that I call the usual suspects. And these are the investors that a business will look to if they're trying to get capital for their business. And these are basically banks, other kinds of lenders. I call them like institutional lenders that are not banks. And there's all kinds of those. There's ones that are very, very expensive. There's factors. There's all kinds of ways you can get loans for your business. Then, if you're not eligible for a loan, or you don't want a loan, there's another group of investors that we might call them, venture capitalists, funds, angel investors. And those investors tend to be looking for super high growth businesses, and they'll invest in a way that is not as onerous in a way as what a bank looks for, because a bank is looking for certainty. A lender of any kind is looking for certainty that they will get paid back, so they don't take a lot of risk. Angels, VCs, investment funds, they're willing to take more risk and have more patient capital, but they're looking for a company with the potential to grow really, really big. And so that leaves so many businesses out, because there's tons of businesses for whom debt is not a good fit because they need more patient capital, but they're also not able to convince an investor that, oh, we're going to be the next Google, we're going to be the next Uber, we're going to be the next Facebook, whatever. So that's why so many businesses have trouble accessing capital. There's a kind of a growing sector of investors, which are mission-driven investors, impact investors, and sometimes they don't even care as much about making super high returns. They really care about making a positive impact. Many of them do care about making high returns, but there's some that control money that doesn't have to be paid back to anyone. So maybe it's like a foundation that has money that comes from a wealthy family and no one ever has to get paid back. So they're willing to get a lower return, maybe even take a slightly bigger risk to do positive things in the world. So that's a good source of funding for some of the businesses that cannot get the other sources that I mentioned. However, those sources have a lot of limitations as well. So for one thing, oftentimes they really only want to deploy large amounts of capital in large chunks, because they have a certain amount of work they have to do when they're investing in something, and they can't make lots of small investments because it just is so much work. So they're looking to deploy maybe a minimum of $500,000 per investment. And most small businesses don't need that much. And by the way, even when they're deploying 500,000 into an investment, they don't want to be more than 20% of the total investment. So you have to need quite a lot of money for that to work for you if you're a small business owner, which for most small business owners, that doesn't work. Also, for direct investments in a small business, a lot of these investors are not interested because they perceive the risk as too high. What they're going to put their money into is maybe a venture capital fund, or some kind of an investment fund, or a CDFI, which is a community development lender. It's very unusual that they'll put their money directly into a single business. And if they do consider putting their money into a single business, they don't want to take a lot of risk. even though they're comfortable maybe taking a little bit more risk than a bank and taking a little bit lower returns than your typical angel or venture capital fund, they don't want to lose all their money. So they are somewhat risk averse, most usually. Um, Also, even if they would be open to investing in an individual smaller business, oftentimes they won't because a lot of the businesses that most need capital don't have really the infrastructure to even be able to find those investors or prepare to present an opportunity to them because they don't have access to really good lawyers or really good accountants because that stuff is expensive and they can't afford it. So, the vast majority of businesses in our country really don't have a great place to turn to raise money for their business. And a lack of access to capital is one of the number one reasons for business failure. So it's really sad that there's just that much capital floating around in our country, but none of it is really benefiting probably 99.9% of businesses, which are small and just don't have the ability to attract that type of funding, or, it's not a good fit for them. The only source of capital that I know of that actually can flow to that 99.9% of businesses for whom those sources are not a fit is what I call community capital. And community capital is money that comes from the non-usual suspects. And that's basically regular folks who don't even think of themselves as investors, but may have some money invested somewhere. They may have a retirement account, they may have some money socked away on E-Trade somewhere, or maybe they've bought some gold and put it in a safe in their house, but they have some money invested in something. But if you ask them, are you an investor? They'd probably say no, even though they are. But they do have the capacity to invest in things that they choose to invest in. Oftentimes, they're not necessarily wealthy, which means they're not accredited investors. And accredited investors are people who meet certain wealth or income requirements, and they have the ability to see investment deals that the rest of us cannot see because of the securities laws. There's a lot of investment offerings that really aren't open to anyone unless you're an accredited investor, which 90% or so of us are not accredited investors. However, it is possible for anyone to invest in a small business that they care about, or an initiative, or a real estate project, something that's happening maybe in your own community that you would love to see happen, that has the ability to potentially generate financial returns, maybe even better financial returns than what you're currently getting with where your money is. And you can choose to invest in those things. And the link that I mentioned below is one way you can do that. It's a platform called Small Change, and it has real estate projects that you can invest in. And anyone can invest. You do not have to be accredited. Some of the really good things about community capital, as opposed to these sources that I call the usual suspects, like banks, investment funds, angel groups, etc., is that the terms of the investment are much more flexible. Really, the entrepreneur who's raising money, or the small business owner who's raising money, can design their investment offering to really fit their particular situation. So maybe it's debt, but maybe it's a type of debt that's a little bit more patient, that's paid, like there's something called revenue-based debt. So it's paid out based on the company revenues instead of a certain amount due every month, no matter what. So when the company does better, the investors get more. When the company's having a tough month, the investors get less. This is a better type of investment instrument for many businesses, because they may not always be able to pay the exact amount every month that a bank would need them to pay. But there's also a big upside for investors, because when they're having a really good month, investors do better. And of course, another really great thing about it is generally you're going to have a larger number of smaller investors. So the risk is spread out among many people. So with these types of investments, I know someone who has made hundreds of these types of investments where, the minimum investment can be anywhere from like $100, $500, $1,000. And so there are people that are spending their time really diversifying their investment portfolios by finding these opportunities to make small investors in many, many different opportunities. So, from the perspective of the investor, they have a diversified portfolio. So, if one thing doesn't work out, there's still other things that might do really well. And from the perspective of the business owner, they can feel a little bit better knowing that worst case scenario, if things don't work out, the risk was spread and you're not ruining like one investor. Everyone's lost an amount that they can afford to lose, because you should never invest more than you can afford to lose, because these investments, just like any investment, can be risky, are risky, I should say. And of course, when we invest in our own community, instead of sending our money out of our community to a big giant multinational company listed on Wall Street, we're building local wealth. We're recirculating money in our own economy. We're investing in businesses in our own community. We can walk into the business maybe and see the results of our investment. And then when the investment hopefully starts to pay off and we start making money from our investment, we spend that in our own community. You can also get really cool perks as well, which is, there's no perks when you invest in a Wall Street company. Although I have to admit, I heard that if you invest in Estee Lauder, I think they will send you some makeup. But but still, that's not the same as having a perk that, like for example, the offering that I have on Small Change that I have linked below. We have perks about like you can stay in the building in one of our beautiful furnished residential units. So that's a really awesome perk if you invest a certain amount. Anyway, it's still really challenging for small businesses to use the tool of community capital. There are some legal developments that happen in the past 10 years that make it a little bit easier, but they still need a lot of support to be able to do it. You do need some legal help. You need an accountant. I think most importantly, you need a way to meet people in your community and learn how to ask them for money. You may already know a lot of people in your community. You may already have a lot of customers, but when it comes to asking someone to invest in your business, it's like a whole different muscle that many people haven't ever exercised before. Just asking someone to invest in your business for many people can be very scary and very challenging. So that's actually what we're building at the Mulberry, which is the business that I'm raising money for in the link below. We're going to have a space on the first floor that's all about supporting local businesses with helping local residents in Baltimore learn how to invest in small business in Baltimore and make connections between businesses and potential investors and help everyone get more confident about community investing, both on the business side and the investor side. And of course, someone can be both. I mean, I have raised money from investors and I've also invested. That's a really great situation because we want money to be circulating and growing among us, both in our roles as business owners and investors. And of course, everyone can be an investor. These investment opportunities are open to everybody. So I hope you'll check out the link below on Small Change. It's an opportunity to invest in this real estate project in Baltimore. There's other real estate investment opportunities there as well. And I hope you'll consider being a part of the movement to grow community capital in our country. So to bring more money off of Wall Street onto Main Street into the small businesses that really need capital to thrive and to succeed. And so many businesses that really have so many positive things to offer fail or never even start in the first place due to lack of capital. So I hope we can turn that around together.